Clearly.
It's not an issue. All right, we don't need that much sarcasm. Ben Brown, 7 no-hit innings. Are you also like fans who's saying, I mean, arm health and pitch count is one thing, but let's go for a no-hitter?
I mean, it would be awesome to have a no-hitter, obviously. And, Ben's agent was texting me during the game, like, hey, leave him out, because he wanted that too. But, I think we all want as many healthy innings out of Ben as possible, not just for this year, but for the future. So to really spike his pitch count in that situation just wouldn't have made sense, for him, despite, whatever situation we were in from a team standpoint or from an individual standpoint. If he's a guy that's throwing 110 every night, I think that gets to a point where he's able to get into the ninth inning like that. He just hasn't built up that way yet.
Is he texting you that after you pull him, or is he texting you that in the 5th or the 6th?
He was, as we were about to pull him, he was texting me don't you do this, don't you dare. But I'm sure that he also wants Ben to be healthy.
That's a fascinating thing that he's willing to text you that, because none of you have the control at that moment, right? You're not texting Craig or Tommy to make the decision in the dugout, correct?
Undoubtedly, yeah. No, we are not doing that. That is not only illegal, but inappropriate as well.
It's amazing. Ben Brown's year is incredible. He's been phenomenal in just about anything you ask him to do. It's got to be tempting to think of him as a bullpen answer, but then you see this, and of course it's tempting to think of him as a rotation answer. Where do you lie on that in terms of his utility for you guys right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the playoffs give you a really good understanding of what, good relievers are. And as much as you can take starters and you put them in the bullpen and they're really, really good, starters are typically, the guys that you feel like can get outs the best. And you move to the bullpen if you really can only get those outs over a shorter period of time, either because you have a limited pitch mix or just how your physiology works or anything of that nature, or arm injury, those types of things. But you want your best pitchers pitching as much as possible. And so that's why you put your best pitchers in starting rotations until potentially the playoffs, when you have them, throw some of those high leverage innings. So could Ben throw high leverage innings for us in the back end of the game? Yeah, he definitely could. But he can also accrue 7 no-hit innings for us in a really important game. And those 7 no-hit innings were really important. So we're, glad that he's flexible and glad that he has the ability to be dominant, but just going to use him wherever we get the most value out of him.
As long as you mention the bullpen, I imagine that you've seen what Jeremiah Estrada, the former Cub, is doing in San Diego right now. I think he struck out 13 in a row. He was here and people knew about the 4-seam fastball, but why did this kind of breakout not happen for Jeremiah when he was here?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and something that we are constantly thinking about. How do we have guys that have success when they come over here, and how do we make sure that we're not sending guys away that there's some lever we could have pulled where they could have success. So Jeremiah is a prime example of that. That's gnawing on us. They added a split over there. We had talked about it. We had gone through some of it with him, but did not fully pull the trigger and fully commit to it, and had to make some really hard decisions this offseason on who we were going to remove from our roster, and made the decision to go with Jeremiah. And obviously he's shown that that was the wrong decision. So, yeah, we didn't pull a pitching lever that we should have pulled, and it's a lesson learned and a hard lesson learned.
So when that happens, do you examine processes? Do you examine tech? Or was it, how do you learn from it when that stuff goes on?
Yeah, I mean, it's the process piece. It's, hey, we identified that, he could throw a split. We identified that might be something that would help his repertoire. Obviously his fastball is pretty special, and we had really focused on that. And we kept our focus on that throughout the season last year, and, didn't really put our training economy towards the split. And I think that would have opened up a lot more performance. And, we had to make a decision to remove him. Obviously we didn't want to remove him. We just only have a limited amount of roster spots, and we made some decisions on guys over him. So, yeah, it's examining all of that. I mean, the tech is fine. The tech just is what it is. It's just saying what's happening. Now, what we actually do with that information is what actually helps us make good decisions, and we just got to be better at that.
Carter Hawkins, Cubs general manager, is with us. Parkins and Spiegel on the score. Do you believe that the offense is more similar to the first 27 games of the season or the 28 or 29 games since?
My obvious hope is that more similar to the first. Typically the answer to these things is somewhere in the middle, but I still would like to be better than somewhere in the middle for us. I think we got really good offensive players who just haven't been playing offensively very well as of recently, but it's absolutely in there and would expect that we'll score more runs here in the short term and over the long term as well.
No, yeah, of course, in terms of the hope. But, like, do you have a theory on – I know it's streaky. I know it's hard. I know OPS is down. I know average is down. Crazy velocity, crazy stuff, crazy movement. But do you have – what's the working theory as to why this group of players is struggling offensively for a pretty real sample size at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you look at guys that have been in the league for a while and have a pretty good track record, the Ian Happs, the Cody Belgers, the, Seiya Suzuki's, like you have to imagine that, they've had streaks like this in their career where they haven't been able to hit well and got out of it and ended up having really productive seasons. So not worried about that from that standpoint. Certainly I think you had a guy like Seiya that had the oblique injury and just hasn't quite been the same since he got back from that. Same with Cody with the broken rib, like hasn't quite been the same. He's been pretty good, but hasn't quite been the same as he's gotten back from that. Nico with the hamstring, Dansby with the knee. I think, Ian with the hamstring that kept him out for a little bit. Just haven't gotten in the groove yet. I think we're going to. I think we're going to soon. But, I don't think there's one definitive thing you could point to other than we just haven't had consistent at-bats, consistent approaches, and that's what these guys are working towards.
I don't know if it's fair or not, but our impression is that you're the more patient and calm part of the duo with you and Jed. That Jed is the one who's raring to go. Maybe it's because of the Kate Horton reference you made with us last year. But do you take turns being patient? Who's more patient right now with this lineup?
Yeah, it just depends on what decision you're making. I think we're equally eager to win baseball games, in the short and the long term, and we're equally aggressive in expressing our opinions. It's hard not to get emotional when you're seeing guys that can perform really well, not quite, get up to their own standards. To say that one of us is more aggressive or more emotional, I'm not sure that I could say that fairly, other than we're constantly grinding, not just on this major league team. That's 20% of our jobs. Like 80% of our jobs is all of the things underneath that, making decisions that are going to affect us 4 years from now, 5 years from now. So, I think that's kind of a little bit of the misconception is we're absolutely thinking about our major league roster all of the time, but there's just so many other things that we're doing that we really won't see the fruits of for a while that are important to each and every day.
Well, so then a guy who's not with the big league club right now, PCA, I think multi-hit games in first 5 after you demote him. Fans are expecting him back soon. Should they be?
He's definitely making a case for it. Just the ability to play defense, the ability to go down there and take the option decision really, really well and get the at-bats in and just make the most out of the days that he's been down there. He really hasn't missed a beat. That's been super encouraging. So he's made a really, really strong case. And, I think, there's a decent chance that we're a better team with him up here. And that's something that a decision we're going to need to make here sooner than later.
And so when that comes, because we talked to Craig about it, he acknowledged, right, that part of it is about big picture and development. If he comes back, he's got to play. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not going to be on the bench 9 out of 10.
Okay. Because that is the thing that I think we're all excited to see. I would love to have known what the conversations are like when you guys see the highlight of him getting thrown behind twice and then pimping that home run.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit more just fandom in watching that. That's pretty cool. There's if he's anything, he's exciting and he's emotional and he's fun to watch. And, that kind of thing is fun to watch, to see somebody really try to punch you in the face and you punch back, even harder. So, that's the type of mindset you want on your team. And he definitely, like I said, he's made a really strong case down there. And, when you think about how guys respond to adversity like Pete did, or, I even think about Ben Brown when we sent him down during spring training, just that conversation with him in the office. You see some guys and like you give them bad news and it's like just definite disappointment, but kind of like, oh, I thought I had a chance, but I didn't make it. And then there's other guys that you can just see in their eyes, like they're just ticked off. They're just really ticked off. They're like, okay, like you're 100% wrong, and I'm going to show you how you're 100% wrong. I think Pete's got a little bit of that in him. Ben's got a little bit of that in him, and both of those guys, when they've had that adversity thrown at them, have definitely bounced back, and I think it speaks volumes for their future.
Carter, I think I learned the lesson when K-Rod came up with the 2002 A's and the Angels, excuse me, and just had that like confidence, arrogance, swagger. Like having a kid that brings that to a team can be so valuable. Don't you think what Pete brings in that way can have an intangible effect on a team in a positive way?
Yeah, it can. It definitely can. Especially when it's measured in terms of disciplined and not doesn't turn into things that are overly aggressive or not great decisions on the baseball field. But yeah, that intensity, that passion, that like I'm going to go get you, I'm going to win this thing attitude, like those things definitely permeate and when the players also just actually doing real production on the field as well. That's a big thing.
And another sort of intangible question in that regard, if there were like a for sure superstar slugger on this team, does that make a difference to the dynamics of a lineup in a clubhouse? If Juan Soto were here or somebody like that, can their presence and the confidence of having that person have an intangible effect?
Not that could be proven. I mean, would we want Juan Soto in our lineup? Yeah. Like he's going to create a lot more runs. And I think he's going to get guys around him better pitches. The guys, they have to game plan for him. They're going to throw around him. They're going to throw other guys strikes to make sure they don't walk him in front of him, things of that nature. So I think it changes the way the other team attacks your team. In terms of the clubhouse, I couldn't speak to that. I don't know that you could actually – you could make that narrative, but the most important thing about having a great hitter is that you have a great hitter.
So how do you guys the strength of the team seems to be organizational depth, and that's obviously helped tremendously this year with all of the injuries that we've talked about a ton that you've just referenced in this conversation. But there's also a Juan Soto type, like Speaks is mentioning, like the aggression of let's spend $300 million on a player, or let's trade 3 or 4 prospects for the dude that we absolutely know, barring injury, is going to put 40 home runs on the board. I think there's an argument that could be made that you guys have been awesome at acquiring a bunch of talent, but conservative about pushing the chips into the middle on a player like that when it goes to acquiring expensive slug. Would you say that is a fair characterization of how this roster's been constructed?
I wouldn't say that we've put all the chips in by any means, to your point, but I also wouldn't say that we've been conservative. I mean, we've definitely spent some significant amounts of money on like a guy like Cody Bellinger, this offseason, or a guy like Dansby Swanson, or even a guy like Jameson Taillon, or a guy like Shota Imanaga. So there's definitely been some urgency to field a competitive team that can compete for the playoffs and beyond. So I wouldn't characterize as conservative, but are we trading our entire farm system for 2024? No, we're not trying to do that either. So yeah, I mean, I would hope that it's a measured aggression with the idea that we're going to be winning for a long, long time here and want to stay set up for that. So that's the constant balance, looking at your team this year and saying, hey, look, if I pull every lever, we can be better. But there's a cost to that. There's a cost to that is difficult to dig out of. And, we don't want to live that again. And so certainly trying to make good decisions here for our fan base, not just for now, but for the future.
Does that work these days in MLB, the measured aggression? It feels sensible. It sounds sensible. Does it work at the very top level?
I think it works. I think making good disciplined decisions works. There's definitely a lot of different ways that you can build rosters. You can build it through the draft. There's teams that accrued a lot of, really early picks and have done a good job of building their farm system through that. You can accrue it through spending a lot of money. You can see that working them for some teams really, really well. You can see it not working for some teams really, really well. You've seen teams try the strategy of tanking and it not working either. So there's no one method that in and of itself is the best method. It's actually having to make the right decisions within whatever direction that you choose. And that's what Jed and I are trying to do every day.
Looking at the Cardinals series, Carter, and I see all those young Cardinals from their system that are up there and contributing, like, whether it's Wynn or, Gorman or whatever, there's a big pile of guys. They always seem to have a big pile of guys. Do some organizations just promote faster, or are they a year or two ahead? Because there's a ton of interesting Cubs at AAA and AA, and maybe we're just a year or two behind on some of these other rosters where I see a lot of young homegrown players.
So, I think both. There's definitely organizations that philosophically promote their players quicker. I think you saw the Angels last year. They had a bunch of very, very recent draftees, playing for their team, and that has to do with organizational philosophy. It has to do with organizational need and kind of where your window is from a competitive standpoint. So I think that factors in. But then obviously just the path of the individual player. To kind of what you were talking about being, I wouldn't necessarily call it behind. It's just 1 year older or 1 year younger or 2 years older or 2 years younger. If most of your prospects are 17, 18-year-old Latin American players that are just getting out of the DSL, it's going to take a couple more years for those guys to matriculate to the big leagues than if you were to get a guy that was a first rounder out of a college. So certainly where our strength in our farm system is right now, and I don't know this for a fact. We don't actually know the future, but if you asked any third party, they would say, yeah, it's in that AA, AAA group, and there's a lot of guys we're excited about that are within that. But I can guarantee you that there's guys in rookie ball and A ball that we don't even think about or talk about right now that'll contribute for the Cubs here in the future, and that's what makes this job really exciting.
Just another minute or two with Cubs general manager Carter Hawkins. When we put on the internet and social media that we were having you on, I think maybe behind PCA, the second guy that people want us to ask you about the most was Nick Madrigal. What do you see? Because we've been, talking about these roster decisions that you're making, and we've kept saying Madrigal's an option to not be on this big league club right now. What is the value of him on the 26-man roster as you see it at this moment?
Yeah, so Nick's a good baseball player that has some skills that definitely can help teams win. His contact ability, his defense at third base. It's his ability to execute those things is what's going to ultimately decide whether he's a guy that's an everyday player for a long, long time or somebody that we're going to have to think about making difficult decisions around. And, Nick knows that. We've had those conversations with him about that. And, the skill set he brings right now is that late inning defense or a quality at bat. And we just need to see him execute on both of those ends, more effectively. And, as he does that, it's going to help us win some baseball games.
This is what it's like when you're a decent team in a big city with expectations. This is entertaining for us. Is it entertaining for you? This particular roller coaster. This is a down minute on the roller coaster.
He said he's taking Tums.
Yeah,
Man.
I know, but you'd rather everybody cares like this, wouldn't you? That's a good part.
Of course. No, this is, I think you said it on your intro or had me saying it on my intro. This is a great job. We love doing what we do. We love that our fans are so passionate. The ability to go to Wrigley Field every day to work, come on, how lucky are we? So, no, we got zero to complain about that way. Love that our fans are so passionate. Love that, hey, even if they're poking at us, I get that too, right? We want to be good for a long time as well. So we're aligned in our outcomes, and now we just got to make sure that we fulfill our goals, and if we do that, I know our fans will be really excited.
What's your Tums per game ratio?
It's higher than it needs to be. Over a doctor's recommendation, I imagine.
All right. Well, take care of yourself. We need you coming back.
We're trying. We are trying.
How many cats at the house right now? Are we in a stasis on the cat total?
We're at a state, yeah. We're a cat status quo. We're at status quo at 1, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. The higher stress is the 3 kids under 4 years old. That's definitely driving most of the Tums usage, to be honest. Yeah, but
I got 2. I got a 4 and a 2-year-old boy, and every day one of them makes a decision where I'm like, oh, if we weren't here, you would have just ended your life. It's insane.
Exactly. Now add one more 4-year-old and a cat to that.
Yeah, I just got a dog and a wife.
It's some Pepto use. So, but no, we're doing great and having fun, and hopefully win a lot more baseball games here soon.
Have you ever said catus quo before, or did you just pull that?
I've literally just pulled that out.
Wow.
It's exciting.
It's impressive.
See, he does jest hard.
He jests very hard.
Very, very hard.
See you, Carter.
See you, fellas.
Bye. The status quo.
Amazing.
With Carter Hawkins. That was a quick hang up.
Yeah. I'd like to forget that this ever happened.
At the end.
I understand.
Oh, God. The cat. Yeah, but supports Pause Chicago. Thank you to Carter Hawkins. They're ambassadors there. The mission is, again, no kill communities, end overpopulation of homeless animals, and to transform animal welfare.
I appreciate the admission that some organizations promote faster, because that's what has felt apparent over these past couple years. Last year, I think a lot of us assigned that to David Ross, an unwillingness to play some of the kids. So remember Alexander Canario came up last year and didn't get an at-bat. He was here for 4 days, didn't get an at-bat.
Yeah.
And then his first at-bat was against, I think, Duvall, the great closer in San Francisco, in a blowout. It's like, wow, this is his first time, whatever. And then he went back down. It has appeared to be more organizational, which perhaps we should have known, that some of the kids are not getting promoted. I'm hoping that as the calendar churns, as the offense is what it is, that some of that aggression will get a little more aggressive.
Yeah, it's also, I would imagine, a product of being a, as you called them, a decent or pretty good team. That, I mean, Craig told it to us when you weren't here with Grody. He was like, if PCA's here every day, he's not playing every day. Down there, he's playing every day. Mm-hmm. So, like, but what I was saying to him was, but that's a weird spot, right? Because if tomorrow was a playoff game, he would be here. Like, he absolutely helps the team win.
Yeah. He's
absolutely one of the 26 best, but it's not a playoff game, so playing every day helps him accelerate in his development faster.
Hey, man, last night's 7-inning no-hit superstar is probably in a bullpen if the playoffs were tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it is there.
Well, and if the playoffs were tomorrow, are they even in it
I don't know.
This point after the losing streak? Probably not,
but
right?
Point being, it's a different animal. As we know, it is a different animal. I think PCA needs to be here.
Yeah, they'd be seventh. They'd be the final wild.
They'd be the
team.
final wild card team.
Yeah.
So they'd.
I mean, listen. I think PCA needs to be here too. But if PCA's here, then Bellinger's at first, and Michael Bush is on the bench and in the DH rotation, which is fine. But that's the decision that they have to be willing to make.
And you might not get that solo home run last night.
But he was pretty honest about PCA. He's like, he's making a really strong case for it.
Yeah. Good. Good.
So, he's not going to tell us when it's going to happen, but I don't think he did not disagree with the premise that since going down, he's making a very strong case to come back. And what did he say? He's like, he's going to play 9 out of 10 days if he's back, something like that.
Yeah. And it sounds like they've already had some of those difficult conversations with Nick Madrigal about what might happen.